You are not thinking your own thoughts. Right now, as you're watching this, your mind is running a script you didn't write. A script that was handed to you before you were old enough to question it, before you even knew what questioning was. And the worst part, you've been defending it your entire life, calling it your personality, your values, your identity. But what if none of it was actually yours? If that question just made something shift in your chest, you're in the right place. I'm glad you're here. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you changed the way I see everything, and I think it's going to do the same for you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly when it happened. Not in some abstract, philosophical way. I mean the actual mechanism. The specific window of your life when someone else's beliefs were written into you as if they were your own. I'm going to show you who built the system running inside your head. And then, and this is the part most people never get to, I'm going to show you how to take your mind back. 3 steps, tested, uncomfortable, and completely worth it. But first, you need to understand something that most people spend their entire lives never realizing. You weren't raised, you were installed. Think about that word, installed, like software, like code written onto a blank drive. Because that is almost exactly what happened to you between the ages of 0 and 10. Your brain during those years operates almost entirely in a low-frequency, highly receptive state, what neuroscientists compare to a hypnotic trance. You are not analyzing, you are not filtering, you are absorbing. Everything around you, the things adults say, the emotions they express, the rules they never explain, all of it goes in, unquestioned, tagged as truth. And you believed all of it, not because you were weak, not because you were naive, but because you were designed to. A child who questions everything doesn't survive. Absorption is a feature, not a bug. The problem is what gets absorbed. The adults around you, your parents, your teachers, your community, they weren't handing you truth. They were handing you their programming, the fears they never overcame, the limits they never questioned, the beliefs that were installed in them by people who are now long dead. And so the software passed down, generation to generation, running in the background, shaping every decision you think you're freely making. Before you could question reality, you were already living inside someone else's version of it. And then you went to school. Now, before I say this, understand, I'm not blaming teachers. I'm not blaming your parents. I'm talking about a system that nobody designed with bad intentions, but that produces the same outcome regardless of intent. What does school actually reward? Sit still, be quiet, memorize the answer, give it back exactly as it was given to you. Don't ask why, ask how. Not why does this rule exist, but how do I follow it correctly? 13 years of that. 13 years of training your brain to perform compliance and call it intelligence. And then society picked up where school left off. Dress a certain way, or people won't take you seriously. Want certain things, or people will think something is wrong with you. Succeed in the specific ways that are visible to others, or you'll feel like you failed. Because the approval of people around you starts to feel indistinguishable from your own self-worth. That's not an accident, that's conditioning. And then there's the media, the content, the feed, engineered not to inform you, but to hold you, to keep your attention just anxious enough, just outraged enough, just stimulated enough, that you never sit in silence long enough to hear your own thoughts. You weren't trained to think, you were trained to respond. And the entire time, you thought the thoughts were yours. I want you to think about something very specific right now. Think about a belief you hold strongly. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be about money, about relationships, about what kind of person you are, about what you're capable of. Pick something you believe so deeply that the idea of being wrong about it feels almost threatening. Got it? Now ask yourself, where did that belief come from? Did you arrive at it through experience? Did you test it, challenge it, look at it from every angle and choose it? Or did someone just tell you? Did you watch someone live as if it were true and absorb it without ever deciding? Whose voice is the one that tells you you're not good enough? Whose voice warns you not to try? Whose fear are you calling caution? Whose ceiling are you calling reality? Here's what's uncomfortable. Most people, when they trace a core belief back to its origin, don't find a decision. They find a moment. A teacher who said something once, a parent who reacted a certain way, a failure that happened when they were too young to understand it wasn't permanent. And yet that single moment became a law they've been living under for decades. You didn't choose most of what you believe, you inherited it. And then you built your entire identity on top of it without ever checking the foundation. That's not weakness, but staying there once you know that is a choice. If something just clicked for you, drop it in the comments. Tell me, what's one belief you've never questioned until right now? Because the people in those comments, they're the ones who are actually going to change, and I want you to be one of them. Here's the moment most people turn back. The second you genuinely begin questioning your beliefs, something inside you resists hard. And it doesn't feel like a thought. It feels like a physical threat. Your chest tightens. Your mind starts generating reasons why this is dangerous, why it's arrogant, why the people who raised you were right and you shouldn't question them. Why this kind of thinking leads nowhere good. That's not wisdom speaking. That's your programming protecting itself. See, your identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are, is built almost entirely from your beliefs. And when you challenge a belief, your brain doesn't experience that as intellectual inquiry. It experiences it as attack. The same neural circuitry that fires when your physical safety is threatened fires when your worldview is challenged. So your mind does what it always does under threat. It fights. Comfort fights truth, because truth means change, and change means discomfort, and your brain has spent years optimizing for comfort over accuracy. Fear fights freedom, because freedom requires accountability. If the system programmed you, nothing is your fault. But if you're free, now your results are yours, your choices are yours. That's terrifying. And approval fights authenticity, because the version of you that other people recognize, the one that plays by the rules, fits the mold, meets their expectations, that version belongs to them. The real you, they might not even like. Most people feel all of this and they stop. They call it being realistic. They call it growing up. They go back to sleep inside the system and they spend the rest of their lives wondering why something always feels slightly off. But not everyone stops. The people who actually reclaim their minds don't do it by learning more. They do it by questioning more. There's a critical difference there. Learning more without questioning only reinforces what's already there. It builds a bigger, more sophisticated version of the same prison. You become someone who can defend their programming more eloquently. That's not freedom. That's a more elaborate cage. Real deprogramming starts with one habit. One simple, disciplined, uncomfortable habit applied to every belief that governs your life. 3 questions every time. First, who taught me this? Not is this true? Not yet. Just where did this come from? Can you name the person, the moment, the source? If you can't, that belief has been running on autopilot in the dark. Second, why do I believe it? What evidence do you actually have? What experiences confirmed it? And are those experiences genuinely representative? Or did you unconsciously collect the evidence that fit and ignore what didn't? Because your brain does that constantly. It's called confirmation bias, and it's one of the primary maintenance tools of your programming. Third, what happens if I reject it? Not what do I replace it with, that comes later. First, just ask, what actually happens if this belief turns out to be wrong? Who loses? What changes? What becomes possible? Most people have never applied all 3 of those questions to the beliefs they're most certain about. Most people are most certain about the beliefs they've least examined. That's the trap. Start there. Go to the certainties first. That's where the programming is deepest. Here's where the real shift happens, and most people miss it even when they do everything else right. They go through the questioning. They identify the programming. They reject beliefs that were never theirs, and then they wait for a new self to show up, for clarity to arrive, for someone or something to hand them an identity that finally feels true, and it never comes. Because that's not how it works. You are not a collection of beliefs. You are not your history. You are not the sum of everything that was installed in you. You are the one observing all of it. That's the shift. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness watching your thoughts arise. You are not your fear. You are the presence that notices fear. You are not your programming. You are the consciousness capable of recognizing the programming for what it is. And once you see that, really see it, not just intellectually understand it, but feel it land somewhere true, everything changes. Because now you are no longer a passive product of your environment. You are an active participant in your own construction. You get to decide what you keep. You get to decide what you build, not from nothing, from choice. Most people will live their entire lives inside the system, thinking borrowed thoughts, feeling inherited emotions, defending beliefs they never examined, and they'll call it living. A few will wake up, and those few, they don't just change their thoughts, they change everything. I want you to do something before you close this. Scroll down to the comments right now and answer one question honestly. What is one belief you've carried your whole life that you've never actually questioned until today? It doesn't have to be profound. It doesn't have to be something you've already solved. Just the one that came up while you were watching. The one that felt slightly uncomfortable when I asked whose voice that was. Write it down. Because the act of putting it into words is the first step of actually examining it. And the people reading those comments, they're going to see theirs reflected in yours. That's how communities that actually change people are built. Not through passive watching, through recognition. Most people will watch this and move on to the next thing. The feed will pull them back. The scroll will continue. And somewhere underneath the noise, this will sit, half-formed, unfinished, just uncomfortable enough to be quietly ignored. But a few people watching right now are going to do something different. They're going to sit with this. They're going to ask the 3 questions. They're going to trace one belief back to its source, and they're going to find something there that changes the entire story they've been telling about themselves. Those people don't just change their thoughts, they change the decisions their thoughts produce, and then the actions those decisions drive, and then the life those actions build, until one day they look up and realize they are no longer living inside someone else's design. That is what this channel is built for, not motivation, not content, reconstruction. If that's what you're here for, subscribe, not for me, for the version of yourself you haven't met yet, but already know is real. And if this video moved something in you, like it. Share it with someone who's ready to question something. Because the most powerful thing you can do right now is put this in front of someone who's been waiting, without knowing it, for exactly this. I'll see you in the next one.